Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 217 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And today we have one of the longest titles we've ever done, I think.
Yes.
For the movie, which is Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. And we also have an amazing interview with Jason Paul Collumm, who you might remember me mentioning about a year ago when I ordered two of his really cool documentaries he did, Screaming in High Heels and Something to Scream About, which are two great documentaries on the Scream queens. Of course, like, you know, everyone knows the big three, you know, Linnea Quigley, Michelle Bauer, Brink Stevens, which, of course, feature in our movie tonight. So there's a perfect team. But the other one goes to Julie Strain, Denise Duff. And so there's definitely a bunch of both documentaries have different kind of focuses on it, but they're both amazing if you love 80s, those 80s video store horror movies and stuff like that. So I think you guys will love this interview because he's an 80s kid like us. Also, and he loves horror movies, so it's great.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get right into it. This is our first chop. All right, Brian. Well, you know, I've been not watching a lot of horror movies per se, other than the ones we're doing for the episode. But I have been catching up on a lot of shows because I kind of got tired of having all these shows in my backlog that I'd never finished. Like, I never finished X-Files, for instance. I never finished Star Trek The Next Generation. I might have watched 7 seasons, but I never finished them. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and rewatch some of these things. But obviously, I don't have the time to rewatch all of these. So I've been using that kind of video speed up app in the Chrome. I don't know if it's called Video Speed Controller. It's a plugin for Chrome.
Didn't like one of the other streaming services have that where you could actually do it?
Yeah, some of the streaming services have it built in. The Chrome plugin is really nice, but you could basically speed up video and watch it in like double time, and it doesn't change the pitch of the voice or anything. So for most shows, if you just watch it like at double speed, you can get the gist of it. Now, it's not something I would use for movies, obviously, because as a film guy, I want to see the movie as it's intended, and you want to see all the nuances of the acting and all that kind of stuff. But for like a show like Star Trek, that, I don't remember if I've seen this episode or not. I probably did years and years and years ago. I don't see anything wrong with just watching it double speed, getting the gist of the story and moving on. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of going back. It's been kind of fun. I've been going back to X-Files, Star Trek Next Generation, Babylon 5. Some of those that I don't even know where I left off, but it's just a quick way to catch up on those and kind of binge them like in double time. So I thought it was kind of cool. But the one horror thing I did watch was on Shudder, and that is a Shudder exclusive, Boris Karloff, the Man Behind the Monster. And I love my horror documentaries, and I love Boris Karloff. And this one, again, just another great horror documentary. I've never seen a documentary on Shudder I didn't love.
Yeah, true, right? Did they ever have a bad one?
No, but this one, it's really good. And it's interesting because with the subject of the documentary being Boris Karloff, I thought it would be kind of the same format you're always used to. You start off with his childhood and you go all the way up through chronologically through his life, and they don't do that. They jump around quite a bit, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, they kind of start off with very close to the front of the movie with Frankenstein, and then they jump to the Mummy, but then they go back and talk about his childhood, and they talk about his parents. So it kind of jumps around, but it doesn't feel haphazard. It feels very orderly, and the people they have talking on there, they've got some famous directors, they've got famous critics, film historians. I don't think there's any of our film historians in there, Brian, but you have some of those people.
I love how we say our film historians.
They're ours now because we made them up. But just to say that there's a lot of very knowledgeable people talking about Karloff's life, interspersed with scenes from his movies and radio recordings they had of interviews they did with him. So really, really good. It's entertaining. If you like Boris Karloff, if you like old horror, there was stuff in here that, I thought I knew a lot about him from listening to commentaries and stuff, and there's still stuff in here that I learned. So definitely worth checking out. Boris Karloff, the Man Behind the Monster on Shudder.
Nice. So now we have a quick little promo here we want to read you guys. So it's this is about Stephen King's new book. I guess Stephen King and Richard Chizmar. So visit StephenKingAudio.com to learn more about Stephen King and Richard Chizmar's electrifying new audiobook, Gwendy's Final Task. Return to Castle Rock in this final installment of the New York Times best-selling Gwendy's Button Box trilogy. Download Gwendy's Final Task wherever audiobooks are sold or visit StephenKingAudio.com to learn more. Now, you've read the first two, right, Tim?
I have not read the second one. The second one
okay.
was just Richard Chizmar.
Oh, okay.
They both collaborated on the first one. Richard Chizmar did the second one, and then they're both collaborating on the third one. I really like the first one. It's not full novel length. It's a very short novel, so you can get through these pretty quick. But it's a really good story, and I definitely want to check out the other two that I haven't read. So I'm sure these are fantastic. Anything Stephen King's involved in is fantastic, and Richard Chizmar is very talented as author as well. So these are definitely worth your time.
Yeah, and I think I want to start listening to some audiobooks. It's a nice sometimes because sometimes my eyes are just so tired from staring at a work screen all day that it might be nice sometimes to sit back and listen to a nice audiobook at night. So I may look into getting one of those. What is it? Audible, I think you can get there's an app.
Yeah, Audible has an app, and what Olivia and I did last year, right before Christmas, Audible was running a year-long promotion, and they were selling their yearly subscription for I think $75.
Oh wow, that's good.
And so what a yearly subscription gives you is 12 credits, because you get a credit per month, and that credit can be used for any audiobook on the site. So you're essentially getting 12 audiobooks, and these things are expensive to buy, separate. So it's definitely worth having Audible to get credits for these things. And I think I still got 9 credits left. I got to burn, but before the end of the year. But yeah, so I've actually got a backlog of audiobooks now, but they're great for when I go out on my walks. I try to go out walking every day to get out of the house since I'm working from home, and just being able to just pop in a book while you're walking and use that time that would otherwise be quote unquote wasted.
Yeah.
You can listen to some content.
Well, yeah, and I look at it sometimes before I go to bed, I'll pop on the iPad, which they say is terrible to do, watch a screen right before you go to bed. But so maybe I I'll pop in my audiobook, hear a chapter or something. It's like a bedtime story, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Before I go to bed.
yeah, definitely.
Speaking of going to sleep, here's someone who you probably don't want to encounter, and that's, of course, Freddy. And Screambox, which is another horror streaming service there, they just apparently dropped all, 92 episodes, I think? Basically, all of the Freddy's Nightmare series online. So you can, if you ever haven't seen those or you want to revisit it, they have every one supposedly on there. Yeah,
this is a series I ended up having to, now, when I wanted to get this, I don't know if you could even get it on DVD. I ended up having to find bootlegs to download, and they were really bad quality.
Yeah, there was a DVD because our friend Amanda on social media that she does all her reviews of all her books she gets and stuff. She posted a picture of having a DVD set of it, so Nice. It does exist somewhere. But it looked like it was one of those ones that she might have got a like a import.
It was hard to find for there for a while, and so I was just downloading them as I could find them. But I haven't seen the entire series. Some of them are pretty rough, I'm not gonna lie, but it's an interesting anthology, and maybe it got better as it went on. But I definitely want to check those out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it vaguely watching it when it was on originally. I know I didn't see every one of them, so I may check that out on Screenbox. May get at least a month and try it out or something. We'll see. If we do, of course, you will be the first to know.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to our interview with Jason Paul Collumm. Jason is he's acted, he's written, and he's directed. He's done it all, and he was just fantastic to talk to. Really super nice guy. I just really enjoyed that interview and all the insight he brought. And as we all do, like I said, when a bunch of 80s nerds get together, it's always a good time. At least for me, it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed as much as we did. All right, everybody. We have with us tonight actor, writer, and director Jason Paul Collumm. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a treat when we get to interview and talk to people that are in the industry and making horror movies.
Yeah, and I can thank you in person for those little extras you sent me on my Blu-ray and DVD set there. I bought the some of your docs, and it was you sent like little autographs, one sheets and stuff. It was really cool.
Oh yeah. I love doing that kind of stuff because the fans, when I sell them directly from my own office, I'll kind of plant some little surprises in there. Just
Yeah, no, it was
compete.
cool. It was good. Tim, it's like, when Tim and I do once a month, we do a one show we call the Dismemberment, where it talks about all the Blu-rays coming out, and we're always like talking about all these extras and stuff like that. And like, so Tim, I can tell you, Jason sent some really cool little extras that would have been like on our list.
Oh, that's
like,
awesome.
They were
Yeah.
hidden, like they were exciting. They were like a little cool, like a little article and stuff. And then there was some autographs, and he actually wrote little notes on the Blu-ray covers. It was cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So Jason, I guess for our listeners that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of horror filmmaking?
So I basically started making, if I go way back, fell in love with horror movies at age 12, right as teen angst was kicking in, and had been terrified of horror films prior to that. And then for some reason, one Saturday night, the original Friday 13th 1 and 2 were on, and I just worked up the courage to watch them, and I instantly fell in love with them. And the following weekend, Happy Birthday to Me was on, and
I love that one.
and it was set in stone. I couldn't get enough. And as I watched them as I was a teenager, I just remember sitting in my room one night, probably watching Friday 13th for the 18th time, and I thought, I want to see my name in those end credits. And I don't know what struck me, but it hit me that particular night. And I thought, I don't care where, I don't care what my job is. I just want to see my name roll up the screen in a horror movie in particular. And it was maybe like a year or so later, I picked up a camcorder and got some friends. And that was in the summer of 1990. And I made a little 10-minute short called Dead Women Don't Wear Shoes.
That's awesome.
Which is about as classy as it sounds. And then throughout my senior year of high school and like maybe my first year of college, I just made several more shorts and entered some film contests, and they got good reactions, and then decided I was going to do it for real. Wrote a script for an official sequel to Last House on the Left, which did make its way to Jonathan Craven's office, which is Wes Craven's son. And he was working through Kushner Lock, which put out the original Last House. They loved it, but couldn't make it. This is 1992. It got an NC-17, or would have gotten an NC-17, I should say, which was, of course, taboo at the time. And so they turned it down, and I took the script to a company called MDM, More Video. They also loved the script, but couldn't afford the rights. And they said, however, we want to make a sequel to Mark of the Devil, which was like a 1970s Euro horror torture film. And the only trick was they didn't know how many there were, like how many sequels there were, and this is in 1994. And they're like, well, if you can figure out how many sequels there already exist, we'll put up a tiny bit of cash and send you a camcorder, basically, that squeaked when it worked. And so with no internet, with no help from any kind of internet, I figured out that there had been 5 to that point. So
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they were all minus part 2. 3, 4, and 5 were just other like retitled horror films, foreign horror films. And I think actually 2 of them were like from the Blind Dead series.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
From the 70s. And so I made part 6. It was shot on video. They made some money on it. I made a couple of bucks, but not very much. And then they asked me to make another camcorder movie, which was originally supposed to be 3 on a Meat Hook Part 2. And you're right, yeah. And so I changed the title and turned it into 5 Dark Souls. Got good reactions for what it was, and decided I was going to make a move to LA and begin my quote unquote real career. So in real quick, that led me to David Dakota and Brink Stevens, who's a Scream Queen, and J.R. Bookwalter, who does really indie kind of stuff. So I kind of trained, and when I say trained, it's like I worked with them and learned, and just I kind of learned by doing, and began a journalism career and started writing for Femme Fatales and Fangoria and some other genre magazines, and that brings us, and then eventually got into making what I call my real movies. So that brings you up to 2004. I'll let you guys ask some questions.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many things in there that are impressive, but I think I have to say the most impressive thing is you found out stuff without the internet. I mean,
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Once upon a time, you had to look at magazines and books to figure things out.
I mean, I remember those days, in high school, having to go to the microfiche, and all that stuff. But wow, that's crazy. I'd like that, and that's amazing. You wrote, I mean, to write for Fangoria, and you're like, that's like classic Fangoria, and then Femme Fatales. I mean, I always remember when you go to like a Tower Records, and it'd be all those horror movies, like magazines lined up like that. That's awesome. So, and actually, it's funny you brought that up, because that's actually was going to be my question. So, what brought me to your attention on the internet, as we kind of briefly discussed before, was your 2 Scream Queen docs that you wrote. One was Something to Scream About, and then Screaming in High Heels. So, what was it about the Scream Queens that inspired you to make those 2, which I have to say, really awesome documentaries? I really do have a lot of great content in them.
Thank you. My hard on for Scream Queens, if you want to put it that way, started, I think, with Brink Stevens in particular. And I just remembered reading about her in Fangoria, but there was never a picture of her. It was always just her name was like repeatedly mentioned in things, and most often followed by Slumber Party Massacre. So I went out and I got Slumber Party Massacre, and I finally figured out who she was. And she, in a very short amount of time thereafter, was going to appear at a Fangoria convention in Chicago. So I thought to myself, I fell in love with Slumber Party Massacre. I want to write a part 4, and somehow figure out a way to bring her back into it, because she, spoiler alert, she gets whacked pretty early on in the film. And so when I met her, she was one of the most delightful people I'd ever met, and she was so friendly. And I told her my idea, and she's like, well, I died. And I'm like,
nobody ever really dies in
no
our
one's
movies.
Really dead.
Have you ever seen a soap opera? Please.
Yeah.
So it was really, Brink was kind of the initial Scream Queen, and then through her I kind of started learning about Linnea Quigley and Michelle Bauer, and then kind of all of the other women that kind of came about. And this is around 1993, 94. So Femme Fatales had just started in like 92. So it was kind of all of these, it was meeting her and seeing all of these wonderful schlocky Nightmare Sisters, sorority babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama, like all of those things that these girls were doing at the time, and Femme Fatales kind of lifting them up to cult status. And I don't know, it just like the whole phenomenon of what that mini market was kind of just intrigued me so much. And then it kind of went away because Blockbuster took over and started getting rid of wasn't buying the B movies, and they'd already wiped out all the mom and pop stores. And I had moved out to LA and was starting to meet all of these Scream Queens like Julie Strain and Judith O'Dea from Night of the Living Dead, and working for Femme Fatales in particular afforded me an opportunity to really get to know a lot of them. Felissa Rose and from Sleepaway Camp, and Denise Duff from the Subspecies movies, and so I was actually meeting these women that I had been watching for years in movies. And Something to Scream About was the result of wanting to. So many people thought that these women were just kind of bimbos that took off their clothes, but having met them, I'm like, these are really intelligent women, and they're kind of in on the game, like they're in on the joke, and they in turn are kind of marketing themselves based on what's been handed to them. And I thought it was just fascinating. So Femme Fatales, I was working for them, and we had come up with the idea to make a Femme Fatales video magazine. kind of ripping off the full moon, how Charlie Band was doing that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we were going to do it initially as a Femme Fatales Presents, and then Femme Fatales got ripped out from underneath us. That's a whole other story. And so I kind of pitched my idea to J.R. Bookwalter one night, and he said, I'll put up the money for it. And so it kind of came to be like that. So, and then Screaming in High Heels, Something to Scream About was a much broader, like just a various women who worked in the industry as these horror movie actresses. Screaming in High Heels was very hyper focused on Brink, Linnea, and Michelle, because they really were these women who created what a scream queen is in the video market. So
yeah, and that's we just to tell you. So we, for the movie, we actually are doing Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama as our movie of the episode. This
awesome.
Because there's one that we like, we both loved and have seen tons of times, and but it's like we never actually did it as a feature thing, so we thought it's a perfect pairing with your interview based off that thing, getting the big three, so to speak, there. And yeah, and actually the Something to Scream About, I thought the Julie Strain stuff was good. Like her interviews were fantastic in there, because it really showed that like she got it, but it wasn't just like that scream. She had ideas, she had like she knew she wanted to help other people into the but she didn't want to steer them in the wrong direction. It was really informative to see her interviews. I remember I was so saddened when she had passed, but it was a really, these documentaries are so good. I think everyone needs to check that out. We'll definitely at the end we'll put in our show notes too, where they can order them from you too.
Good, yeah, and in reference to Julie in particular, she had been, first of all, she married the guy who created Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
That's cool in itself.
So I got to hang with Kevin Eastman more than once, and also super, just like such a like an everyday kind of guy, like no pretentiousness at all. And Julie was, he's also, if I don't know if people realize, Kevin Eastman is Eastman Kodak. So,
right. Yeah.
So Julie had taken up photography because it was kind of right there within the family. And so she said to me, I know that you're trying to get your feet in the film industry. Come over, I'm going to take pictures of you. I'll help you out. She did the documentary for free because she knew that it would kind of help elevate me. And Julie was very big on helping people get into the industry. And the only thing she kind of required out of you was loyalty, like friendship, and she offered me possibly my biggest grievance of my life. She offered to take me to the Playboy Mansion, and I said no.
Oh, no.
And to this day, I kick myself for that. And I just kind of said no because I was terrified. I was driving a clunker car, and I'm like, I am not pulling up to the Playboy Mansion in like some beat down 1988. This is 2004. So I regret doing that. But Julie herself was just so wild on screen. But when you met her, what a great woman,
Yeah,
so
she seemed really cool in the documentary. She was one of the it was someone I always wished I would have been able to meet at the convention. We've been lucky, we've got to meet a couple, like Felissa Rose we got to meet, and she's amazing. She just we could listen to her talk about movies forever. But yeah, and like Linnea Quigley was there, we met her too. I definitely
Tiffany Shepis.
Yeah, Tiffany Shepard. We didn't get to meet. I still never got to meet Brink Stevens, and it's like my friend had that like classic picture of her, that was on the cover. She autographs. He got to meet her once at a convention and stuff. And but yeah, so they really are like. It's so fun to talk to them because they really just, they always have such great insight, and they obviously love what they do, or they wouldn't keep doing. And you can people knock these actresses and actors and stuff that do those kind of movies, but you look at like Linnea Quigley's got almost like 250 credits to her name. So how do you knock someone that has done 250 things? It's like
exactly, and that was kind of the point of Screaming in High Heels. These were women who were just looking to pay their bills. Debbie Rochon is another one. Where they're like the pretentiousness of like signing autographs and and all of that. They're none of that. They were really just women who were like, I want to pay my rent. You know,
Right.
this is what's been handed to me, and so I'm going to take this and make something out of it.
Well, hey, I mean, do you hear that famous story that Betsy Palmer always tells? Like, she did Friday the 13th because she needed a new car.
Right. Exactly.
So you know what? And there's someone who is like, you know, it's like legendary in all aspects of film, not just horror. So yeah.
So, Jason, this one's a little more thought provoking. But how do you think the Scream Queen has evolved over the years? Like, is it different today than it was back then?
Well, I don't know that it even is anymore, to be quite honest. Brink. So I mean, the original Scream Queens, as people would think of, would be Fay Wray, Jamie Lee Curtis, Janet Leigh. What Linnea and Brink and Michelle created was more of like the video vixen Scream Queen. They were the girls that kind of sought out doing horror films because they knew that that's where their fan base was. Janet Leigh and Fay Wray, Jamie Lee kind of fell into it and only did a couple, and then but they also did all these A-list movies, right? Brink was kind of really the initiator in creating a fan club, and you got a monthly newsletter that she mailed to you, and the trading cards and the comic books and bars of soap with their faces on it, and I mean, just like, and little model statues, and so they were creating something very different, and that kind of carried through until around 1994, I would say, because again, their fans were of the VHS boom. And when you needed to fill store shelves because there were so many mom and pop stores and Blockbuster had really just opened and they didn't have enough material. Well, by 1994, now the market's saturated. And as the B movies went away, those three girls kind of, the big fame that they had started to kind of go away. And a lot of women had kind of jumped on their train to follow them. And so as you kind of get into like the late 90s and early 2000s, you had a couple of women here and there. You had Debbie Rochon and Tiffany Shepis, and Felissa actually kind of came back later in the game. I mean, people connect her to Sleepaway Camp, but really her Scream Queendom wasn't until like the early 2000s when she started making films again. There was Tanya Dempsey for a short bit there. And so there was still a little bit of fandom. I don't personally feel that fandom is there anymore for women who do horror. I think there's women who have fans based on a specific movie that they did, but not because they're a part of the horror genre. Does that make sense? I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it does make sense.
Yeah, and I see people that are like, oh, it's a like people say, oh, it's the modern day Scream Queen just because they did horror movies, and I don't know if they really truly understood where that moniker came from. So and the history behind it, they just heard it and start to say it, which I mean, I guess is that's just I think basically like the term now is different than it was, kind of, right? I mean, do you see that? It's like I feel like back then it meant like a specific type, like you said. Now it kind of means a woman that did horror, and it's not
right.
It's kind of been watered down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been very watered down. And I mean, and if you watch the Screaming in High Heels, Brink kind of gets into it. So many women jumped on it that there were women, and I remember seeing these women who would appear at horror conventions and they'd have like a Dracula cape over them and they'd say, I'm a Scream Queen. And I'm like, okay, but who are you?
Yeah.
Like, I've never heard of you. And then it's like, well, okay, well, what movies have you been in? And I'm totally not meaning to knock the camcorder movies because I clearly just stated that I made them myself. But somebody who's been in like a single camcorder movie in somebody's backyard and maybe sold like 50 copies is not a Brink Stevens or a Linnea Quigley, whose movies went to theaters. You have to remember back then that HBO was a big thing, so their movies appeared there, and their movies appeared on as the NBC movie of the week, and Silent Night, Deadly Night, Night of the Demons, Elm Street. These women were in movies that were in some pretty big movies back in the day. So these women kind of claiming to be Scream Queens who weren't, they were actresses, muddied the waters, as Brink kind of puts it.
Yeah.
And So I think the whole concept of what a scream queen was got blurred and faded out of popularity. And I also to remember they'd really try to get you, if you were at a convention, these girls would almost kind of jump out at you and like, here's my picture, it's $10. Do you want an autograph? And there was this really rude one at this Chicago convention that I appeared at years and years ago. I was going to take her picture for Femme Fatales, and she wanted me to pay her for it. And I was like, and who are you? So that would be a no.
Yeah.
And actually, that picture, she finally agreed to let me take her picture, and I was so pissed off at her. I never put it in the magazine, and it appears in the documentary, but her face is blurred because they didn't want a lawsuit.
Oh, darn. And did you know if she ever like made it anywhere, or did she ever like advance, or?
I couldn't tell you. I don't remember her name. I have obviously the original photograph and don't recognize her face.
Could do a Google image search, see if she appears in something else.
It's quite possible. So, I mean, if you watch the documentary and you can see the outfit she's wearing a very distinct nurse's uniform, like a plastic nurse's uniform. And, that's the girl, but really rude. And I'm like, who do you think you are?
I know.
I can call up Linnea Quigley right now and say, hey, can I take some photos for Femme Fatales? And she'd send them off with no issues, so.
You've I know you've written, directed, acted, you've done the gamut here. Most of the time in this, it looks like based on the IMDb in the same film, no less. But so what can you tell us about your process when you're writing a film, knowing that you're actually also going to direct it? Does it change the way you write it at all, or do you just kind of write it the same way as if you were handing it off to somebody else?
I write it to know because now I can't talk. I write it because I know who I want to play the part. So I write to the talent of the actors. And that's kind of why I started writing things that I wanted to direct on my own and produce on my own, because I worked on several productions for other people. I did a couple of A-list commercials, and it's just not my scene. Like, that's like so much waiting and so much attitude. And I did a Sega commercial, and I was an assistant director on it. But I remember this Sega commercial. This actress literally was holding a phone, and she just has to go, oh, like that's it. She has to gasp in the phone. They made this poor woman do it like 40 times, not exaggerating.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, why do you need 40 clips of this woman going, oh, And so I just, again, learned so much from Dave Dakota, learned so much from J.R. Bookwalter, but I realized at some point that I wanted to kind of make my own stuff, because then I could make my own rules. So when I write my scripts, I know it's more or less where I'm going to shoot it, how long it's going to take, who I'm going to put in it, how much money it's going to cost me. So I kind of also write to my budgets, because I know that my average film is between $13,000 and $15,000. So I know the realities of what I can afford to put on screen. So in that way, that's how my writing style is affected.
Oh, it's interesting. That's cool. That must be fun at some level, knowing you're writing the whole thing and you're gonna it's gonna turn out the way you're visualizing it. Because when I'm sure when you're writing something, and you're like, oh, if it only could come out like this, but you're making it happen like that. That's cool.
Right. And I've always, there's a couple scripts that I've always kind of held back on making myself, because I have the dream that I am going to send it out and somebody's going to give me a lot of money for it. But I really do prefer being the guy who sees it through from start to finish. So
cool.
So Jason, out of all the films that you've worked on, which would you say kind of best illustrates your style? Like, which was the one you're most proud of? Which is the one you would say, here, if I can only show you one movie that I've worked on, this is the one I would want you to watch?
Well, I'm going to have to answer that in two parts. So the first one would be, so for the documentaries, it would be Screaming in High Heels, hands down. It was my dream project. It took me years to get it made. And I am so proud of it. I really am. And it hasn't aged. So it just celebrated its 10th anniversary. And maybe I'm being prejudiced because it's mine, but we just screened it again at the Chicago Flashback Weekend of Horror for its 10th anniversary. And I'm like, I don't feel like this has aged. I feel like you would think that it was brand new if you were seeing it right now. For fictional feature, October Moon is the one that I'm kind of best known for. And I'm the proudest of, because that too was a movie that I felt I kind of felt from like my inner core needed to be made, because there weren't any other movies like that had been made to my knowledge. It was, in hindsight, there are some things that I would have shortened in it to make it a shorter film. But overall, it was what I meant for it to be.
Awesome. So, well, you kind of touched on this, but a little bit. But so you're around the same age as us, I guess. So how do you feel about the horror films today versus the ones that we grew up with? Like, what do you think the biggest difference is?
The biggest difference is the soul of the film. When we grew up, I think about this all the time now, because I think I know how I'm going to make my next film. The final girl was a girl you just so desperately wanted to live. You wanted her to make it through, and you didn't want necessarily the other characters to die. Now, I know that there's different types of horror fans. I personally am a fan who just likes to be scared. I love the suspense. I love the twists. I am not necessarily a gore person. However, there's a whole group of people who are there for the gore factor. So it all kind of depends on the reason that you're there for the film. But for me, I love when somebody, this is going to sound horrible now I'm saying it out loud. I love when a character is dying who I did not want to die, because that means that both the writer and the actor put more meat into it. And I feel like a lot of movies now, especially all the remakes that we kind of went through for 10, 15 years there, that's what they were missing. They're like, why didn't the Elm Street remake work? Why didn't the Friday the 13th remake work? Because you didn't care. I mean, and the Elm Street remake was like the worst, because it was all of these just whiny ass characters who just bitched and moaned for like 90 minutes and were like the image of the way that the film looked was like this bluish tint, like they were all just, I'm so like, woe is me. And I just find that a lot of horror films today forget the story and forget the characterization, that they think that all audiences are there strictly for the gore or for the torture factor, and forget that, yes, you still need that connect, whatever type of, whether it's just to be scary, just to be suspense, just to be gory, but or what's best is when all three of those come together, because I can appreciate a good splatter too.
Yeah,
that's true, because every slasher I watch, unconsciously or maybe consciously, I'm always looking at how much do I like these characters. And without fail, the movies that I remember are the ones where the characters were three-dimensional and had a story and they were funny and they were, we talk about this all the time, Brandon. When we do slasher movies, that's one of the things we talk about every single time, is where these characters disposable or where they feel like real people. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, because it became like you now root for the killer in most of the movies these days,
yes.
because that's probably not what it was in the 80s. You were like, you were more in the side of the survivor, so to speak, or the final girl, like you said, or
and I don't like how they, I guess there's this philosophy that the character can't be likable if they're going to die, because which I think that the exact opposite is true. The horror comes from watching a character die that you do like.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree with that. But speaking of remakes, since we just we trashed some 80s remakes. If there was an 80s horror film that you were given free reign, unlimited budget, and it's yours to remake, which one would you do?
Oh, dude, that's like a hard one. I might.
That's our hardest question. We usually give. So that's the type of question. That's usually the hardest we'll give. So.
If I knew that I wasn't going to get slaughtered by the fans, it might be a toss up between the original Friday the 13th and Prom Night.
Oh yeah,
because
Two good choices, yeah.
isn't it
Yeah.
interesting? It's so rare that you hear about Prom Night, and yet it's so substantial to the genre. You know, the who done it, the 10 Little Indians aspect, of it. And it's like in all these discount bins now as part of like a 10 movie set, which just blows my mind all the time. But I think
Maybe the remake
because
should go in there, but not the the
yeah,
other remake. Of it, yeah.
that piece of crap. Yeah, I went to theater and saw that, and I remember there was a group of like 8th grade age girls sitting next to me, screaming their heads off through that remake of Prom Night. And as they're walking in the theater, like, oh my God, that was like the scariest movie I've ever seen. And I'm like, go home.
That's like the crowd Tim gets stuck with every time.
Every time.
If you go back
Every
to,
time.
if you listen to our show in history, anytime Tim comes back from seeing a movie in the theater, he's got like a horror story like that had nothing to do with the movie, but the patrons in there. Either someone's yelling in there, or he got the loudest snack person in during A Quiet Place.
It never fails.
Never
God,
fails.
yes. I have to quick jump back. Oh God, no, I just went blank. Well, quickly, the quick story. I used to teach film class, and when I showed the original Hellraiser, and I asked the kids the same question that you asked me about, like, well, what's different about now and today? And they said it had a story, and so that kind of, I remember that kind of took me back.
Well, the next one we're gonna just ask you is if there's anything you have currently in the works that you want to talk about, like if you can, if I don't know if it's, I know sometimes you're on a project and then you don't want to say anything yet, but there is anything and you want to let us know.
Well, the one that I can tell you about, well, I'll tell you two things. The first one it's non-horror. Have you guys ever heard of the Letter People?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, the Letter People was a reading program from the 70s and 80s, and it was
Letter, you said?
Letter, yes.
Oh, okay. No, I still didn't hear of it, but at first I thought you said the leather people, and I was like, I thought it was like a mythology.
That's a whole other kind of movie.
Well, yeah, I thought it was like the Slender Man. I thought it was gonna be like, I'm like, oh, so it must be like a true crime thing. It's like the Leather Man or something. Is like some guy that like hangs out in the woods or something. Okay, all right.
No,
and then you start talking about like school. I'm like,
different.
oh, he might have said letter, didn't he? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
there's another plot, a movie we got now. There we go.
Exactly. It was a reading program for kindergartners, and they were these blow-up characters with letters on them, and they stood the height of the child, and they each had their own personality, songs and storybooks and everything that kind of built them to let the child believe that they were alive. And if you speak with somebody my age who experienced that in kindergarten, their eyes bug out of their heads. And they're like, oh my God, the Letter People. Oh my God, Mr. M was my favorite with his munching mouth. And so it just kind of struck me because I'm a fan of it. And but just that I was starting to get reactions from people that I knew. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. And I started going online, and there's like little clubs of adults, like 50-year-old men and women who still talk about the Letter People. And yet, but now you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, right?
I'm surprised I don't. That sounds like something I would know about.
I mean, it's the same age range.
Yeah.
I'd have to maybe look them up and maybe see if I recognize them.
Yeah, I bet you if I saw a picture of it or something, I'd remember.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but if you would remember them if you had them in kindergarten, like trust, like everybody remembers like the songs, and they all remember the characters and who their favorite character was. And they remade the program in the late 90s, and it's very different from what the original program was. So this documentary that I'm making, it's called Everything, I don't know, it's a very long title. I may change it. everything I ever learned, everything I needed to know, I learned from the Letter People. So I may shorten that before it comes out. But I found the creators of it, and they're in their 80s and 90s now, still alive.
Oh, wow.
And I've actually become very good friends with the woman who was the main person who came up with the concept. She's like 88, 89, and we talk on the phone every couple of weeks. And so it's really cool. And then, okay, that's the nice thing that I'm doing. Then during the pandemic, I had put out Mark of the Devil 666 on DVD because people kept asking me for that piece of crap. It's an awful movie.
I love when the movie is it's like part 6. Everyone goes to the 666. I love
It always
that.
goes to 666. Well, it seemed appropriate for Mark of the Devil, right?
Yeah, definitely for that one.
Which, by the way, had nothing to do with the devil. I'll add. So I put it out. So J.R. Bookwalter has a new company. It's called MakeFlix, and it's MakeFlix.com. And it's kind of a consignment shop for DVD, just for filmmakers. So you basically you have to supply the product. He sells it through his program. The money instantly goes into your account. So
cool.
I have been ripped off for so many years by so many other distributors that this has proven to be like the best thing in my life. I'm actually making money. And so I put Mark of the Devil 666 back out on DVD, and because more video has been long gone and done for probably 2 decades by now. And the thing keeps selling. And I'm like, okay, if this piece of crap movie keeps selling, and it's like the original VHS copies are on eBay, I'm not lying, for like $150, and they sell. And the movie only costs like $450 to make. So it sold really well. And I'm sitting around here during the pandemic, about a year and a half ago, and I'm like, I need to do something. I need to make a new movie. Hey, now you can make movies with your iPhone. And somebody challenged me that I'm too spoiled now because I have quote unquote budgets. So I took on the challenge, and I said, I'm going to see if I can make Mark of the Devil 777.
I love
tongue
it.
firmly in cheek.
Yeah, I was totally going to tell you. I said, is it going to be 777? No joke. That's like, that is, you got the right audience here with that.
Good. So it kind of makes fun of part 6, and shot on video movies. So there's a lot of winking that goes on in it. And I was able to shoot it in a way that I didn't have to have a lot of people together, because again, we're locked down, or we're not supposed to be around, certain people. I got a lot of the original cast to come back for it, which were basically my friends and family. So that's what I'm working on editing right now. I'm trying to teach myself how to become an editor, because when we did it back in the day, you hooked a VCR up to a VCR.
Yep.
You pressed play and you pressed record, and you did that for 2 days without stopping, because otherwise you get the rainbow line that would go down the screen.
Yep. I remember those days.
If you cut. So this is a little easier. So I'm in the process of editing that right now. That's been done shooting for a while, and I'm hoping to have it out within the next couple of months.
Nice. Yeah, I looked up while you were when you mentioned that. I don't recognize those letter people. I'm surprised though, but they look really cool. But I was thinking, it made me think of that thing like what's like just itching for a good horror movies is that Sweet Pickles bus. Remember that?
Oh yeah, Sweet Pickles.
Now
we stumped Jason. We got
well, because we always joke about that, because it was like when we were kids, it was a commercial. It was, if you actually signed up to this service, basically what you get in the month, you'd get like, I think, a box of books a month or something. But the commercial made it look like this giant bus filled with all these kind of characters would come out and hand you the books. So it was really cool. And I was like, oh my God, that would make the perfect, like that. Like when you said the letter people, I'm like thinking Sweet Pickles horror movie. There's got to be something in there. So,
well, you guys have heard of the Banana Splits movie?
Oh yeah. And I was a
which was
huge fan of Banana Splits growing up. So
yeah, see, and that's the crazy thing. So there was just a moment where I thought, I wonder if I can make a letter people horror movie. No, don't do that. Gonna destroy all these people's childhood,
Yeah. Oh my God, what was that? What's that thing, Tim, that Haley Bishop got us hooked on? That thing,
oh my
YouTube
God,
thing. What is that thing?
Hug Me, is it Hug Me,
Hug Me, I'm Scared? I think. Have you seen that?
No, but I feel like I've recently heard that.
There's always a meme from it, I know, that goes around.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It's
on
YouTube.
Hug Me, I'm Scared.
Yeah, it is the most bizarre thing. But I remember when I was told about it, I had to watch like every one of them. It's so bizarre. I think there's only like 8 of them at the time or something like that.
They're very
look it up. Yeah, look it up on YouTube.
In a good way.
Okay.
Yeah, it is so bizarre and so freaky, but like great at the same time. So you got to check that out.
So, Jason, I guess we'll wrap things up by you can tell our listeners where they can find your films and where they can follow you online, and just kind of your free reign to promote.
Just talk about me. All right.
Yeah, do it.
So the bulk of my stuff is, if you want if you want a hard copy of something, if you're looking for the digital media, we've got Blu-ray and DVDs are through the best place to get them is MakeFlix. You can get them on Amazon, but you're going to get a better deal at MakeFlix, which again, I'll just say is MakeFlix.com. And then you would, for my product, you would go on the side. There's like, I think it says like other producers or something. And you click on that, and then you go down the list, and I'm B-Boy Productions. So then all of my stuff for there would show up. You can stream stuff. So I know like Screaming in High Heels, Something to Scream About, October Moon 1 and 2, and Safe Inside are you can get through Amazon Prime. And I mean, like again, the hard copy stuff, you can pretty much get it most of the other retailers. You can get it like Barnes and Noble and Walmart and whatnot. But MakeFlix is easily your best price range. And I put them up there cheap because I'm not stupid. I'm one of these guys that when I was putting out Mark of the Devil, everybody said, "Why aren't you putting it out for $19.99?" And I'm like, because it's a piece of poo. I'm very realistic. And I'm also realistic about a lot of like these guys that are like the hardcore collectors don't have like tons and tons of money for all the things that they want to get, right? So if I can sell my DVD for $9.99, versus $19.99, I've got a better shot at them including it in the bulk of all of the other things that they're going to buy. So
well, coming from someone that Tim will tell you has like that Tim named the monolith, which is my wall of Blu-rays and DVDs that sit along the shelf. Like I appreciate that because I like to buy a lot of things, and I don't like when I have to like, I'm like torn between two because of the budget. So I like that. So I just go on MakeFlix there, and I'll scoop up a bunch of your stuff there.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I have 3,000 DVDs and Blu-rays. Yeah, it's people walk into well, it's funny, it's starting to change now, but people walk in, they're like, "Oh my God, you've got so many things. This is awesome." And now people are walking in like, "Why do you have so many things? Why don't you just stream everything?"
No,
Yeah.
Physical media is the best. I like to display it. It brings, I don't know, I think it brings me back to the, always loving to go into those video stores. And I like to see all of it up there.
Yes.
In fact, even the app I use, it's called My Movies where I use to store my collection. You basically scan the UPC and it gives you like a little digital like version of it, like a little thing on the thing. So you can scroll through your actual, like a little mini picture of the box art.
Mm-hmm.
And box art to me, and Tim and I, we always talk about it. We love the box art of stuff.
Yes.
You lose that when you get a screener, a digitally. Like I have a digital collection as well. Most of it's from when I get the digital copy with the Blu-ray, which I think is whoever thought of that, the combo of that, I think was a genius. I think Disney was the first ones I remember that would offer all three, would have a Blu-ray, a DVD, and a digital. And I listen, I love digital as well because I'll watch it on there, but I'm gonna buy it first on Blu-ray and get my digital copy next, because I like to have that physical media. I don't know. That's crazy. My wife's always like, as a kid, can you not collect one of the things that you collect?
No, it is. It's the box art, and I want to hold that sucker in my hands, and I want to open it up. And one thing that you'll find that I do that a lot of people don't anymore is I do liner notes on the inside of the opposing side of the wrap. So instead of like having switch or reversible artwork, the inside of when you open up the clear case, you're going to have the story of the movie.
I like that. Yeah.
So I didn't do the insert booklets, but you can, slide the sleeve out and you can read all about the history of whatever the movie is that you've purchased of mine for a very low price.
Yeah. And plus, if you're streaming, you can't like put on the movie and then like, put up the little box like next to your TV. So it looks like you're like a real movie theater. You can pretend for that moment,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and, maybe I only do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I do it. I do too. It was right next. Yep, got it. Let everyone know what I'm watching right now.
There you go.
Well, cool. Thanks so much for coming on, Jason. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome discussion. Like I said, it's always a treat when we get to talk to people that are out there making horror.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
thanks.
you're of course you're welcome to come back anytime you got anything else, or you just want to come on and chat some horror stuff with us, or if your new projects you want us to help spread the word, you have an open invitation whenever you want to come on.
I will absolutely take you guys up on that, and slasher movies were my thing. So if you guys do a slasher, it doesn't have to be about any of my stuff. I'm always happy to come on and just talk slasher movies because,
Well, we do. We have had some success. We've done some round tables where we've
Oh yeah,
brought in guests to kind of give people a break from our voices for a little bit and just discuss. Like we did one for the Halloween Kills. We had some of our buddies on. We had Emily Sweet on for a movie called, what was that movie
The
called?
Visitor.
The Visitor.
How could you forget?
Oh my God!
Have
From
you
the
seen that
late
one?
'70s.
If you have not seen that one, you need to watch that movie. It's
Yes.
on, I think it's on Shudder right now and Tubi, but you can
I
catch them
feel
on
like
both.
I did, but it's an old movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
79, I believe.
Yeah, I feel
it is
like-
crazy.
Back in the day, yeah, I did. I do remember that thing that I said I wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Because otherwise it's going to drive me nuts. So you had asked the difference between movies back then and today. You have to remember that when Halloween came out, when Elm Street and Friday the 13th came out, Freddy was meant to be terrifying. He wasn't meant to be funny. And
Right.
Michael Myers was scaring the shit out of people, and people in the audiences were screaming for Laurie Strode to run for her life. They did not want her to die. When her friends, they did not want them to die. And same with Elm Street. Like, you liked those kids in the original Elm Street, that you liked that group of kids. And that, I think, is what's missing now. Is it used to be that you were cheering for the victims and the final girl, and now the audiences cheer when somebody dies. Does that make a difference? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we
no.
cheer for the villain now.
I think you used to scream in the theaters. I remember when we went and saw I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I was sitting with my best friend, and we were screaming like little 13-year-old girls throughout that movie. Because the movies are supposed to be fun, and I think that maybe that's with the torture porn, as torture porn kind of came in, that fun aspect kind of went away. Like the popcorn horror movie kind of went away, and audiences were there more for the visceral elements, or because and this is not a knock against gore fans, but they were there for the gross out. I think in the torture porn, and I think the average person, how do I say this? The mainstream audience, I don't know, that would go to see a gore film or like a torture porn film, but the mainstream audience would go to see a Halloween or Elm Street. So it was a different kind of reaction to those films from 40 years ago than I think from what you get today. Does that?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah,
makes
no.
sense.
Yeah, no, and like I love, like I will watch any 80s like slasher you put in front of me. Like there's just something about them that are just so enjoyable. What was the we watched one for the first time that oh God, the holiday one. What was it? We just watched it. Was it all?
No, there's a lot of those.
I can't.
Yeah.
I
Was it All
struggle
Through
with
the
the name
Night or
Yeah, it's
something?
like or oh my
Say-
God, it's a
say it
line
again.
from a Christmas song. I
Yeah,
don't
it's one of
remember
the,
the
but
name.
there's so many movies now that have that in it, because like there's the great one Rebecca McKendry did. And this one was but this one had it was the
find it.
same thing. It was like, wait, I'm
Was it
gonna
a Christmas
find it.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a Christmas one, but
So
I had
there's
never seen it before.
There's To All a Good Night.
that might have been it.
Good Night, God Bless. Don't Open Until Christmas. Christmas Evil.
Oh, that's another great one, but I love that one, Christmas Evil.
So those are all the early 80s Christmas
I
ones.
believe
it
it was
To All a Good Night.
To
That
All a
was the
Good Night.
one.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the one. That was a great one.
Yeah, and see that one was like so awkwardly
Great.
weird and great at every aspect. I love that one. So yeah,
Should
so
have
like
you
that,
guys-
like you can put any of those in front of me and I'll watch it because I love those.
Okay, so I have to ask each of you, what movies would you remake?
It's funny. I've
Oh
always
man, it's
said
tough.
I've always had an idea. I wanted to, but and I always come up with the same problem. Like I would love to kind of do a remake, like do a Friday the 13th, the original. But the problem is like, you can't just do it the same way because everyone knows, the big reveal, of course, that, was that Pamela was the killer. So what I always had in mind is, but I don't want to stay too far away because it gets in the territory which I always criticize, but I feel like you would need to maybe start that film earlier and get to know Pamela a little bit more. To make up for the surprise, you might want to see just a little bit to how she got to like so crazy over Jason, like add a little element of it. And
maybe add in Jason's father.
Well, yeah, which I've heard a lot of people, and I've seen a million like scripts online of people like, there was one that was like this, some guy wrote this whole trilogy basically. And I have to say, it was really thought out. I think it would be unfortunately massacred by today's viewers, but it was like, I tell you, it was creative. He had like Jason's father. He had this whole thing where it was a counselor like who befriended Jason as a kid, and there was this whole, that was like the whole middle movie. So there was a lot in there. But I mean, that would be the only thing. I just wonder like how would it, because I always criticize like the fact when like Tim and I, we tend to like, even though we enjoyed it, we criticize Rob Zombie's Halloween a little bit because they gave Michael too much of a story. And I always thought the best part about him is that you didn't know why he did anything.
And that was the part of Halloween that I liked.
Oh, of that one? You liked
that was the one that I liked, that they went into his backstory. So
see, I feel bad. I don't mean to like disagree, but I just always kind of like the fact that you didn't know why he was killing, and I thought that was scary because it could have been, like, why is he doing it? Like now I have no idea how to reason with him or anything. Like there's like, I don't know if there's anything. So I always thought that like, if you go too much into it, but that's why I was like, if you just touch a little bit, like start the movie, maybe give a half hour or 20 minutes of prior to to what the events that took place in the original, and built up Pamela's character a little bit, it could make up for the surprise. And maybe you could do even another twist to it at the end, like twist it again, but like you still have to, I think, remake it and include Pamela as a big part. So that's probably one of my guesses. What about you, Tim?
Well, mine's kind of a weird cheat because they are remaking it, or they have remade it, and that would be Hellraiser. And that's coming.
Oh, yeah.
The Hellraiser reboot's coming out, so I'm hoping it lives up to what I would have done. Not what I would have done. Like I
know, like you missed your chance.
Movies. Jeez, I mean, obviously they're gonna do a better job than I would have done. but no, I think Hellraiser, only because I've always been a huge Clive Barker fan. I read his novels like all the time when I was younger. Other than Stephen King, that's the heart I read was Clive Barker, and I think the first movie never really had the budget that they wanted. They had to take some shortcuts, and I just wanted to see what you could do with that. Even though it's a classic, I'd love to see what you could do with that with a bigger budget, and maybe we will see what they're going to do with it.
One more I thought of actually, and I thought of this when you were saying it earlier. I was going to bring it up when you brought up Prom Night. I would love to see, and I don't know how it would work today, because I think it would be definitely a lot more challenging because of the story. But I would love to see a Terror Train remake, like something with that kind of a
something like that that's not like franchise heavy.
Yeah, well, because I like it that I like when there's there's not so much an a isolation, but more of a trapped thing, like where you going on the train, like that. And that's the thing. So I kind of like that. Like I don't know how they do it nowadays, because I think with technology, someone would be just pick up a cell phone and
cell phone.
So there'd have to be some kind of like, it'd be a lot of you'd have to get past a lot of modern day amenities, I think, to make that work. But
and that there actually was remade about 10 years ago.
Actually,
yeah, but it was just called Train, and it was Thora Birch.
Oh my God, I don't think I realized that was a remake.
Yeah. It was being remade as Terror Train, and then they just cut the terror part out when they released it.
Okay.
Wasn't scary enough, so we just
just a train.
I forgot.
It's just a train.
That's what I loved about. I think I don't know if you've seen it, which is my all-time favorite zombie movie, is that Train to Busan, which because the fact that they were like literally trapped on train cars, and it's zombies. It's not like you're gonna just negotiate with them. You're trapped
right,
and they're going crazy on you. And I like that what they did with the zombie mythology, how they kind of made it so if they didn't quite see you, you could sneak by. So or they hear you. Or I forgot what it is, see or hear, but like it was a couple of basically their senses were off, so you could crawl under them if they were all like in this state. So they built that in them, so it added that suspense of them having to creep through past them. It was really good. I definitely recommend that if you haven't seen that one.
I haven't, but I know of it because of I think that Eli Roth's history of horror.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good show.
Talk about it there, so
yeah. So
I should jot out for self-promotion real quick. If people contact me on Facebook, just Jason Paul Collumm, and it's COLLUM as in Mary. I do have they can buy product directly from me too.
Okay.
And I will send little trinkets along with it. So
Yes.
I've got a lot of the DVDs. I've got a lot of old Femme Fatales magazines that I wrote for, and so I have all sorts of treats if anybody's interested.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because that's what I was so cool. I told Tim right away. I'm like, oh my God, I ordered the Blu-ray and the DVD, and I got all this extra stuff with it. And I took pictures of it, and everything was cool.
That's great. All right, Jason. Well, yeah, again, man, thanks for coming on. That was a ton of fun. And again, you're welcome on anytime. Let's do let's set up a round table at some point. Yeah,
maybe we'll do prom night. Maybe we should, because we haven't. Have we done the original prom night? I can't remember.
I don't think we haven't done the original prom night.
No, we have. I think we did most of Jamie Lee's early stuff, but we didn't. I don't think we've actually done prom night. Maybe we should do that, and then we'll get you in on a round table. We'll just discuss it.
Absolutely, I would love to, because again, cool. I think it's such a movie that almost seems kind of forgotten. Like, I think kids have heard the title, but I don't think they've seen it. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how many people just think it's like the Brittany Snow vehicle from like right,
or if they even know that, because it became such kind of a joke. You know,
I don't know if they might even know that point. Well, I don't know. Speaking of her though, she may get with this new movie, that new one coming out, X, looks really like cool. I think she might get her Scream Queen, the watered down version, of course, Scream Queen, cred, I should say. See, I do it too. I'm like, I get caught up in it, but you know what I mean? Like, she could get her basically her cred back if this one is as good as it looks. A24 does such a good job. So
yeah, they do.
So this one looks like it could be, and the Ty West does a good job with his stuff. So
yeah,
I'm actually looking forward to this one. I want to check it out. So.
All right, man. Awesome. So we'll pencil that in. We'll get a round table going for prom night in the near future.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because everyone likes the round table. We got a lot of good feedback on all our.
Well, they're tired of hearing me and Brian ramble on. They need fresh voices.
Especially me. I mean, Tim, as we joke, Tim's dulcet tones are a nice softer side of my obnoxious New Yorker. So.
And if you ever want to do a Scream Queen panel too, I can. I'll jump on that. I bet you I could even get Brink Stevens for you.
Oh, that'd be
awesome.
Oh yeah, we should do that. Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be cool.
Thank you.
All right, Brian. So once again, another fantastic. I mean, Brian's been knocking. Let's give Brian a hand this year. He has knocked it out of the park on the interview scheduling. We've had nothing but fantastic interviews week after week since the start of the year.
Well, my secret is, I email these guys. So, how would you like to chat with a really dulcety toned, nice guy named Tim? And they jump right in. I kind of hide the fact that I'll be on there too. No, I'm only kidding. No, but yeah, no. Some of it's just like through social media. We meet these people online, and then we reach out and see if they want to come on, because then it's because you just know when you're going to get along with somebody. And I think that as soon as like I ordered those documentaries from Jason, and like we chatted a little bit online, I'm like, oh my God, we got to have him on, because it seems like we will have like a really fun time to just talking about 80s movies and stuff like that, and it did not disappoint. He was an absolutely great guest to have on, he will be on again, I'm sure. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, like we said, we'll have a round table. We snagged another one for our round table episode, so that'll be great. And you guys definitely go out and check out Jason's movies and DVDs and purchase something. Maybe you'll get a trinket inside.
Yeah, he does. He's very good on surprise trinkets. So that's awesome.
All right, so our main feature is one that I basically discovered, or maybe rediscovered, fairly recently. I think it was for one of the horror challenges. It's something that I probably saw back in the day and didn't remember much about, and then I kind of revisited it and like really saw it kind of again for the first time. And then this past today, actually, I watched it again for the episode, which was really enjoyable watching it, with a more critical eye for the episode. And that, of course, is Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama from 1988. Directed by David Dakota and starring Andros Jones as Calvin, Linnea Quigley as Spider, Robin Still as Babs Peterson, Hal Havens as Jimmy, John Stewart Wildman as Keith, Brink Stevens as Taffy, Michelle Bauer as Lisa, Kathy Obrecht as Rhonda, Carla B. as Frankie, George Buckflower as the janitor. he's great. And Michael Sonye as Uncle Impy. And the synopsis here is, as part of a sorority ritual, pledges and their male companions steal a trophy from a bowling alley. Unbeknownst to them, it contains a devilish imp who makes their lives a living hell.
So I have to say, only the 80s could bring you a plot like that. And I'm glad it did, because this movie is so off the wall bizarre in the best way possible.
Yeah, the thing that struck me when I was rewatching it today, because we'll give you a loose, if you haven't seen this, I'll kind of give you like a loose start to the plot here. So you got these frat boy guys that decide to sneak a peek at some sorority babes in your typical 80s fashion where there's going to be a lot of boobs and stuff. So they're peeking in on these girls. They get caught, and their punishment, I guess if you will, they have to go steal this trophy from a bowling alley.
Basically, they have to now partake in the ritual that was just going to be for these
sorority girls, yes.
Entrance, I guess. And now since they joined in to see the good stuff, so to speak, as they put it, now they have to pay the price. They have to now almost like, but without joining the sorority, they just have to do all
yes, it's a way to get guys and girls together in a closed bowling alley, basically.
And a mall, apparently. I guess it's a bowling alley that's in a mall.
But was not actually in a mall, as you will find out in the behind the scenes. But anyway. So that gets them there. And then you have the janitor who's working there after hours. And then your other character is Linnea Quigley's Spider, who happens to be breaking into the bowling alley at the time they show up.
She is so great. I love her role in this thing because she is just so like over the top. Every line she delivers is over the top and but yet it's like gold. I love like watching her in this, the way she just like, especially the scene with George Buckflowers, which we'll mention later because that's like one of my favorite scenes in the movie, but we'll discuss that in a bit.
Now the weird part about this movie that you could have, you've got them set up now a normal, quote unquote normal 80s movie, you probably would have had all these guys in this abandoned bowling alley, and then you would have had some kind of killer that stalking them, and then turns into your typical slasher thing. That's what you would expect. But no, in this one, the trophy holds an imp that grants wishes. A puppet imp. And this when this imp is revealed, he starts granting wishes, but it's sort of like monkey paw type wishes. Like, be careful what you wish for because it's not exactly what you think it is. And this leads to several of the sorority girls turned into some kind of, I don't know what you even call these, evil. They turned evil. They turned into...
I know, one of them's like running around like the Bride of Frankenstein, which I thought was hilarious.
One of them's like a Bride of Frankenstein. One of them's like, looks like she has one of those mud masks on her face.
Yeah.
And anyway. So they become the killers, if you will, stalking everybody else. And it's bizarre. The thing I love about the movie, though, is despite the bizarre plot and the really low budget, I think this whole thing was either the film or the script was knocked out in 10 days, I believe they said. So it's definitely not a big budget production by any stretch of the imagination. But I loved the humor in this movie. There's a charm to it. It's just very well done. It's not like the humor is not over the top, like slapstick per se. Yeah. It's actually really well done for like I kind of mentioned at the end of the interview. Like, it's way better than this movie should be in terms of the writing and stuff. And I looked up the guy that wrote this. This is the only thing he ever wrote. It's the only movie he ever wrote. Yeah. So it's pretty astounding because I thought the writing was so good because the characters are really, really characters that you care about. And that's what we talked about in the interview. Like, a good movie, you need to have characters you care about. And every one of these characters, you feel, you care about. You don't want them to die, just like we were saying in the interview. So when I rewatched it, the first time I watched it, I was kind of watching it for like, oh my God, what the heck am I watching type thing. When I went back and watched it, I was really paying attention to like what makes this movie kind of a cult classic. And I think it's just the heart this movie has, the comedy, the characters, everything in it just works on a level that's way above what a normal low budget camp fest should be.
You know, and it's like, actually, in terms of gore, it's like, it's pretty light on the gore. I mean, when there's a couple of beheadings in it, and they're still like, it's still pretty light on the gore. You know, it's like, you know, and there's nothing that, like, one thing that stands out per se in it, but yeah, it just all works. It was like, you know, what it tried to be, it succeeded at, I think, 100%, which is, you know, not every movie. I mean, you could get $1 billion budget and you know, and movies will not succeed as what they meant to go. This was probably a microscopic budget. It tried to intend, it tried to have nudity, it tried to have zaniness, it tried to have, you know, a little bit of horror element, a lot of comedy, and it managed to hit every mark it tried to hit.
But even the nudity and stuff there was like a sense of humor to it. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't.
Well, considering it, Brink Stevens was literally showering the same part of her body for about 4 or 5 times in the same shot.
Of course, if you look back on 80s movies today with that kind of stuff, you're going to think it's problematic, right? Because that you probably couldn't get away with that these days. But even in this context of this movie, the whole thing just kind of feels like less exploitative and more just kind of goofball. Boys being boys trying to sneak a peek at a naked girl. I mean, it's kind of got this almost, I dare say it almost has kind of like this innocence to it, because the guys that are peeking in are these total nerds. They would have no chance with these girls in any stretch of the imagination. They're essentially harmless.
Like, yeah, their goal is to watch naked women, basically.
Yeah,
not to you know, to you know, harm them in any way. You know, and if, you know, not to, like, you know, do anything you know, overly offensive, other than the like you said, the typical, like, you know, goofball 80s kind of like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's it's like a childlike innocence to it. Like, oh, it's the first time I saw a booby kind of thing. You know, it's just got that to it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that movie. You ever see Private School? Like, almost like that movie.
Yeah,
you know, Matthew Modine and Michael Zora. Like that whole that kind of like thing. Like, you almost like that opening whole sequence. The first like 15 minutes could actually be like an outtake from that movie. Kind of one of those zany sex comedy things. That you know, just to, you know, I mean, maybe not as crazy as like Porky's, because Porky's, when I rewatched that recently, there was a lot of problematic stuff in that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's why I was kind of trying to draw a distinction, because a lot of you could easily try to lump this in with that, but it was not like on that level of Porky's at all.
There is a difference to it in this one. It's almost like cartoonish to a point of where you know, you almost like, like, that's funny. Like, you're literally watching like two women like completely nude with these guys watching, and yet you're almost like, okay, yeah, you know,
it doesn't feel
like
predatory.
There's no predatory nature to it, other than like they just want to ogle some boobs, you know.
Well, that plays out even further in the movie when one of the guys gets his wish that he wants like this hot girl, right?
Oh yeah,
and then she ends up becoming like a nympho that's like he's like scared to death of her by the time she's like tearing his clothes off and stuff. But even that whole thing is played so silly.
Yeah, like she's trying to bite his shorts, bite his shorts off.
Yeah, it's
like
all
so
silly.
Ridiculous that it kind of takes away from the actual act that's going on.
Exactly,
you know, because it's so far fetched at that point and crazy that, you know, it doesn't like, you don't get like skeeved out as you might have, you know, normally. But one of the scenes I want to talk about, as I mentioned before, one of my favorite sequences is that George Buck Flowers, you know, you've seen him in They Live, he's been in the Back to the Future, you know, he's been in a million. He's one of those character actors that, you know, you always recognize in it. And his little monologue to tell the story of the imp, to me, is one of my favorite scenes, like in any horror movie. I don't know, something about it is like, it's so perfectly done, like exactly how a guy like him would tell a tale, you know? And the fact that, you know, when he does it, it's like interspersed with the fact that he's not hearing well, and he's repeating stuff, and he's just like getting under the skin of Linnea Quigley, and the back and forth there is just, it's like so good, because like just the way he's like yeah, like Slade McCade or whatever, he's like he was a bowler and he came in one day and all of a sudden he bowled a perfect game, and then a day later the same thing. It's like he's telling this tale so perfectly. Like a guy like that, if you talk to, would totally have a tale like that for you. And I just think he does such a good job. It's such a like unheralded like performance, I'm sure, in the world, you know. But like for some reason, when I was rewatching it, I'm just like, oh my god, I could hear this guy tell the story over and over again and be happy.
Yeah, he's a great character.
Yeah, and then that whole just scene, and then then you add the fact that like he's like literally driving Linnea Quigley crazy, who's just trying to get out of it. Like, okay, what the hell's with this imp? And it takes him forever to get to that point, and then she's trying to tell him to like wait there, and like just her reaction is like, oh yeah, great idea, thanks. It's just like, it's so over the top, and like it's so funny because her character is like has no patience throughout the entire movie. And here's the thing where you expect her to just go blow her top at this point, because she can't stand it anymore, and yet she like finds this endearing quality about him at the same time. And I think like to find that kind of like thing in this kind of a movie, it's kind of like unexpected.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying. Like the writing and stuff is unexpectedly good, because you also have the relationship between Linnea Quigley's Spider character and the nerd she gets stuck with.
Yeah,
and you could tell like they start off with him like she wants nothing to do with this guy, and he kind of has this endearing quality about him that he starts to win her over the course of the movie
by throwing up and passing out every so often,
yeah.
which is kind of a weird choice.
But it's just neat to watch this whole over this brief movie. I mean, it's not even. I don't think it's even 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 79 minutes or something like that. It's pretty quick
to watch. This relationship between this nerdy guy and this badass girl that would never give him the time of day ordinarily, but they're thrust in the situation, and then how their relationship changes over the course of the movie. I mean, that's stuff that most movies like this wouldn't bother with, but in this movie, it is just another example of how there's these little charming things through the writing and through the characters that make this movie endearing in a way that it probably shouldn't have been given the budget. So yeah, I thought that was great too.
It really, the formula at that point, though, once that imp is discovered and everything goes wrong, it's more that it's that typical, like, kind of like, almost kind of like a zombie-ish kind of, type of movie. But yet it has those little elements which make it, not just such a typical cliched thing, It's definitely a movie that, and there is a sequel planned. Brink Stevens is actually directing a sequel to this.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm interested to see how they could take it now in modern day. But like apparently, like the all I got from the plot is that Spider is now like she's Spider Mom. Basically, she's like running like one of those fraternity moms. So that's good. So we're gonna see her like now like that years later. So like that'll be fun to see her.
Yeah,
years later now. Kind of like basically running over to, and she was like basically this like biker criminal. So like now she's like somehow got into the world of fraternities or sororities. I'm sorry, because of because I guess it was just the plot point, I guess, to get her back in there. It's in production. I could tell it's something that's probably trouble, just because I'm sure the pandemic probably put it behind, because I know it's been in the works for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
But I really hope it comes to get finished, because I think that'll be really fun to revisit.
One thing I really liked also was seeing all the old 80s stuff, like the mall, inside of the mall. And then when they're in the arcade section of the bowling alley, they had like a Tron game, a track and field game.
The Punch-Out was in there too.
Yeah, Punch-Out. The one though that really surprised me, and I had to pause it, was they had one of those Flintstones Egg Machines. Have you ever seen those, Brian?
Was that where it like gives you a prize? Like,
yeah.
With the egg,
so
like in it? Yeah.
We had one in the grocery store where I worked, and you had like this little dinosaur inside, and then he kind of, I think he kind of spun around, but there was prize eggs in there, just like you had a bubblegum machine kind of, but they were egg shaped, and they were purple and orange. I'll never forget that. And you would just put your quarter in, and then it would go, Yabba dabba doo. Yabba dabba doo. Dino thanks you. And then it would drop the egg out. And I would hear that all the time at the grocery store because kids would go up and put that in there. Yabba dabba doo.
You need to buy one of those for your home, Tim.
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to? I worked at the grocery store for 6 years. Do you want to hear the egg commercial?
Yes.
I've never done this live on there. Maybe I have. I don't know. I can't remember. So it was Wilson's. I worked there for 6.5 years, off and on every summer. And obviously, a grocery store has a music track that plays. And interspersed in the music track are these commercials. And they were local commercials for the grocery store that were like locally produced. So there was an egg commercial. And I would hear this probably a dozen times a day. And it went like this. Who cares who came first, the chicken or the egg? At Wilson's, you'll find a variety of fresh, wholesome, delicious eggs. So pick up a couple of dozen a day and start cooking with fresh eggs delivered daily to Wilson's.
Oh my God.
So there's my egg commercial. I'll never forget that. It's baked into my brain. I'll never forget it. So so that was a when I saw that Flintstones Egg Machine, it was like, oh, blast from the past, egg commercial, bagging groceries. Like everything was coming back to me in like flashbacks. So yeah.
And now poor Tim will have that egg song stuck in his head again for the next 3 weeks.
Oh, it was a fun job, man. I had so much fun. That's where I met Olivia, actually. So yeah.
Well, so that makes all the egg things worth
it. It was worth it, yeah. But yeah, that was a great job. In fact, when I worked there, not to go off on a crazy tangent, but when I worked there as a night stock person on night shift, the guy I worked with worked at Blockbuster and was a huge horror fan. So we would literally, while we were stocking shelves at night, would sit there and talk about horror movies all night long. So that was like my most fun time of that whole job is when I got the stock position job at night and we would blast music over the intercom because we could play whatever we wanted because there was no customers and just talk horror movies. And he knew everything because he worked at Blockbuster, so he could just rent every horror movie they had.
That's awesome.
That was lots of fun. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, back to the movie. I enjoyed this probably more than I watched it the first time because I knew what to expect. This is a favorite of mine. This is a classic of mine. And like you said, the second half is maybe a little more, once you get used to the idea of the imp, it gets a little more maybe routine and it kind of wraps up fairly quickly, I thought. But overall, the other little things we talked about, the great writing, the relationships, the great characters, the kind of goofball intro scene, all of that stuff just kind of works in some way that I can't quite explain. It's just more than the sum of its parts. Yeah,
I need to get that. This is a gaping hole, I think, in the monolith that I just never got around to. I know the original Blu-ray is out of print, but there is one that they still have that I think is a pretty decent set of extras on there. I would love Shout Factory to do one, though. That would be cool.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's in there. Them or Vinegar Syndrome, something like that.
Yeah,
one of those places need to really pick up that and get that going because I want to see a good version of that. So I guess so that wraps it up. So definitely check out. It's right now it's on Shudder, so you can. I know everyone that listens here has Shudder, so you have no excuse if you haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
To go check it out and get into the world of the imp.
or as we, I think after we stopped recording, we were talking to Jason and I was asking the question if maybe the imp was related to the Cheddar Goblin from Mandy.
Oh yeah,
because he reminds me a lot of the Cheddar Goblin. So so Brian, what do we have for our beer pairing?
The beer I have is called The Imp.
Whoa, very well done.
And it's from Stark Brewing Company, no relation to Tony, from Manchester, New Hampshire. I don't have much on it other in terms of description, but after last week's description, though, I don't think anything's going to top it for a while, so that's fine. It's 8.5%. It's a strong stout aged in our own used bourbon barrels. So I always like a good bourbon barrel aged stout.
Yeah.
So I'm sure this is probably really good. So I'll have to go pick this up at some point if I see it, and then I can rewatch Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama.
Nice. This movie, I think, would also pair well with a lukewarm pitcher of bowling alley beer.
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, well, they were drinking Budweiser in the their dorm room. The guy's like laying there on his bed. He's got a whole bunch of Budweiser and potato chips all over his belly.
Yeah.
It's so classic.
All right, so our triple threat last week, we were looking for a movie. The answer was My Bloody Valentine from 1981. You guys should have gotten this one. This was a gimme. Clue number 1, I was a very popular 80s horror film that had also a pretty popular remake. And of course, the 2009 remake of My Bloody Valentine is pretty popular as well. And it's not a bad remake. I mean, it's definitely not going to replace the original, but it's not a bad it's entertaining.
Yeah, no, and they definitely updated it and changed it without like really it's very loosely based, obviously, on of course the minor character, but there was still like enough difference to it, but the fact that it was Valentine's and they used a minor, it was okay to kind of like use the moniker. You know how that's always one of my pet peeves.
Yeah,
when someone will use the moniker and then change it ridiculous levels. This one was okay because there was enough of the heart from the original film to do it. So and of course though the big gimmick was that it was in 3D, and it was actually one of the better 3D horror movies out of that time period that came out. I remember the version I have on Blu-ray actually is 3D. It's in the 3D glasses. I haven't seen it in the theater in 3D, but I've seen it on on Blu-ray in 3D, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, it was one of those that I passed on seeing. I didn't see it in the theater, and I passed on watching it for years because I'd heard it was just, it wasn't good. Because every horror movie that comes out, everybody rates it terrible. At least back in the day they did. Nowadays, you actually have good horror movies. But back then, when 2001 came out, every horror movie that came out was automatically panned by critics, except for Scream. So I just ignored it for years, and then when I finally got around to watching it, I was like, "This isn't that bad," It's pretty entertaining.
I mean, it's got Tom Atkins in it. I mean, it's automatically a plus.
So clue number 2, although a true sequel for me was pitched, it was never made. However, an upcoming fan film is going to take care of that. So astute listeners, you should have known this one.
Yes.
George Mihalka approached Paramount in 2001 with a synopsis for a sequel, but due to poor box office records with the original film, they declined. However, we know that the fan film Valentine's Bluff is going to be considered a sequel to the original film. And of course, we had an interview with the creators of that. So, clue number 3, I happen to be Quentin Tarantino's all-time favorite slasher film, and I've known this from watching tons of Quentin Tarantino interviews. But he's always named that as one of his, if not his all-time favorite horror film. Yeah,
and sadly, you just found out the actor that played TJ just passed away recently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In the last couple of weeks, I think they announced it on, I think it was on Valentine's Bluff page, posted it also, but I think I had saw it on one of the, I think Bloody Disgusting had posted it too.
All right, so this week we're looking for an actor or actress. So here are your clues. Listen closely. Clue number 1, my dancing in a music video inspired a sitcom character's signature dance. Clue number 2, in perhaps my most known roles, I was the only member of the main cast to not get either an Emmy or Golden Globe nomination. However, I did receive one for another role years later. Clue number 3, I, along with 2 others, have been in every film of a very popular horror franchise.
I think that third clue should be the gimme.
Yeah,
on
this one you should be able to get this one. I probably could have got that from clue number 1 as well because I knew that piece of trivia.
Yeah.
All right, so our fan topic food question of the week from David McHugh is a good one because it seems simple at first, and then you start thinking about it and then you start second guessing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I have an answer. It's probably kind of a cop-out answer, but I'm still going to give it anyway, but I'll let you go first.
All right, so the question is vampire or werewolf movies? Which do you prefer? So my answer, I'm going vampire, but what's funny about that answer is I could probably name you more werewolf movies that I love than I could vampire movies. But just personally, I've always loved vampires more than werewolves. I've never found werewolves particularly scary. I think it may go back to the Wolfman. Just looks ridiculous, the old Universal Wolfman. But something about the werewolf, I don't know that. I guess it just seems so far-fetched. Not that vampires are more realistic, I guess. But the idea of something actually changing shape just seems like it takes it like another level of unbelievability to me. That it's like a double layer of unbelievability. So I've never found werewolves very scary. That said, there's a ton of werewolf movies I like. I love American Werewolf in London. I love Bad Moon. I love Silver Bullet. I mean, I can name tons of werewolf movies that I love.
Now, do you count the and you like that Wolfman, the one you and I both liked?
Yeah,
the one the Benicio del Toro.
Yeah,
one,
I even like that one.
I thought it's very underrated. I don't know why. A lot of people. I thought that one was fantastic, but
we should probably well, that one might be one we do at some point. But
yeah,
but vampires, I guess. Vampires there's something I've always read. There's not a whole lot of. I've read some werewolf novels, but I've read far more vampire novels, and that has just always appealed to me more. So, if you sat down in front of me and said, "Tim, I've got a vampire movie in one hand and a werewolf movie in the other. Which one do you want to watch right now?" I'm gonna pick the vampire movie because that's the creature I like better. But I have a deep love for both of them. And then Bram Stoker's Dracula is one of my favorites of all time. I mean, period. So, I have to go with vampires on this one, even though it's tough because I can name a lot of werewolf movies I like.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with werewolves actually. And here's where I say it's a cop-out answer though. Now, if it's it's a vampire movie that's Dracula based, it makes it a little more challenging. And so, because I do love Bram Stoker's Dracula, of course, I love the original Dracula. I liked a lot of movies that actually were about Dracula per se, but overall, I think the werewolf ones are going to get the edge overall because there's not like, yes, there was the Wolfman, but there's not like as far as I'm concerned, there's not like a Dracula equivalent in the werewolf thing. So it's always a lot more open things to do,
Right.
And I know, yes, you can make a million different vampire stuff, but like I said, if it's just straight vampires and werewolves, I like werewolves. But if it's Dracula and werewolves, it's a much tighter differential. Because American Werewolf in London was one of my favorites. I love, like we said, I love the Wolfman, and I both versions, the original and the new one. So I don't know, something about the whole werewolf mythology. I kind of like. I even loved the little segment in Big Fish, where Danny DeVito was like the werewolf. So that would be my choice. So, but it's still a good question. It's tricky because especially with vampires, there's vampires and there's Dracula, and I think some people will, like I tend to separate them a little bit, even though they're both vampirical tales,
Yeah, that's like I said, it's one of those questions that seems like real simple when you first read it, and then you start thinking about it and going, "Oh my gosh!" Like I don't know if you start second guessing your answer. So, yeah, that's a good question. Those are the best ones that make us think. So, all right, guys. So we will be back here next week. Hope y'all have a good week, and we're heading quickly into March. Even though it's just mid-February now, it feels like this year is flying by. We just released our second half of our February dismemberment, and we are quickly approaching our March dismemberment, which is going to be pretty sizable, but not out of hand. I think we'll be able to do it in one episode.
Yeah, we'll try and do it. Yeah, because it's while it's easier sometimes for 2 weeks, it's also like.
Yeah,
those dismemberments are they're pretty sizable episodes, and it's hard enough sometimes to fit the one in.
Yeah,
and we always seem to forget that it's the week we need to do because it's it's like we want it to release the same day, the first Tuesday of the month.
Well, this one's tough because March 1st falls on a Tuesday. Those are always the worst ones because they sneak up on you so fast.
Yeah.
You don't get any buffer there, so look forward to that here in a couple weeks, and we will see you here soon.
Yep. See ya.